Jaws and Claws. Winter 2022, deep in the Florida Everglades. Wildlife researchers made a discovery that would challenge everything they thought they knew about predator-prey relationships in America's most unique ecosystem. For 6 long years, they'd been monitoring a massive Burmese python known as Loki, a 13-foot, 50-pound giant that had become their window into understanding one of the most devastating biological invasions in modern history. But when they tracked his GPS signal that cold December morning, what they found would reveal an extraordinary twist in the ongoing battle for the Everglades. The scene looked like something from a crime investigation. Loki's massive body lay motionless, but his head had been completely severed and deliberately buried under pine needles in a separate location. What could possibly take down a 13-foot apex predator that had been devouring 6-foot alligators like appetizers? The answer would shock the scientific community and reveal that nature was beginning to write its own revenge story. To understand the significance of what happened to Loki, we need to go back to where this ecological crisis began. In the 1980s and 90s, Burmese pythons became the must-have exotic pet among wealthy collectors and thrill seekers. These Southeast Asian giants started as adorable 6-inch babies with beautiful golden brown scales, but they were essentially ticking time bombs that would grow into 16-foot monsters weighing over 130 pounds. The perfect storm hit when irresponsible pet owners, overwhelmed by caring for massive constrictors, began abandoning these snakes in the wild. Hurricane Andrew in 1992 made things catastrophically worse, destroying breeding facilities and pet stores across South Florida, releasing hundreds more of these apex predators into the wild in a single night. The Everglades became their paradise. This 1.5 million acre wilderness offered everything an invasive python could dream of. Year-round warmth that mimicked their Asian homeland. Incredible abundance of prey species that had never encountered anything like them. Vast networks of waterways perfect for hiding and hunting. And most critically, absolutely no natural predators capable of controlling their population. What followed was an ecological apocalypse in slow motion. The pythons didn't just establish themselves. They systematically demolished the native ecosystem with ruthless efficiency. The numbers are so staggering they're almost impossible to comprehend. Current estimates suggest there are 100,000 to 300,000 Burmese pythons now living in the Everglades, roughly 1 python for every 5 to 15 acres of wilderness. But raw population numbers only tell part of the story. The real devastation becomes clear when you examine what these invaders have done to native wildlife. We're talking about ecological collapse on a scale that would make even seasoned biologists weep. Native mammal populations didn't just decline, they virtually vanished. Rabbit sightings in python-heavy areas dropped by 99.3%. Raccoon populations fell by 99.1%. Possums saw their numbers plummet by 98.9%. White-tailed deer populations crashed by 94.1%. The muskrat, a cornerstone species in Everglades wetlands for millennia, has essentially disappeared from vast areas of the ecosystem. Bird populations tell an equally devastating story. Great blue herons, wood storks, and ibises. Majestic species that had nested safely for countless generations suddenly found themselves facing a threat that seemed to come from science fiction. The python's hunting capabilities are truly terrifying. These living weapons can unhinge their jaws and dislocate their bones to swallow prey twice their head diameter. They've been documented consuming full-grown deer, adult alligators up to 6 feet long, and even attempting to swallow prey so large that both predator and prey died in the process. Perhaps most chilling is their patience. Unlike mammalian predators that must hunt regularly, pythons can wait motionless for weeks, conserving energy until the perfect opportunity presents itself. They're living ambush weapons hidden in tall grass and murky water. For 2 decades, these serpentine invaders seemed completely unstoppable. Wildlife managers tried everything: organized hunts, bounty programs, research initiatives, even trained detection dogs. But for every python removed, dozens more seemed to take its place. This brings us back to Loki and why his story represents something far more significant than the life and death of a single python. Loki had been fitted with a GPS tracker as part of an innovative Judas snake program, a brilliant technique where large male pythons become unwitting surveillance equipment, leading researchers to breeding females during mating season. For 6 years, Loki had been an invaluable, involuntary collaborator in the fight against his own species. Every movement tracked, every location recorded, every behavior analyzed. He had helped researchers locate and remove dozens of breeding females from the ecosystem. The morning of December 15, 2022 started like hundreds of others. The research team prepared their equipment and set out to track Loki's latest position during an unusual cold snap that had dropped temperatures into the 40s, remarkable for subtropical Florida in mid-December. They expected to find Loki coiled with a female python, as they had so many times before. Instead, they encountered something that looked like a forensic crime scene. Loki's body lay motionless, but his head had been completely severed and deliberately buried under pine needles and leaf litter away from the body. The scene was methodical, almost ritualistic. Precise bite marks around the neck, evidence of coagulated blood, and clear signs that whatever killed Loki had carefully hidden the head separate from the body. This wasn't chaotic violence, it was the calculated work of a skilled predator who knew exactly what it was doing. Wildlife experts were immediately called to investigate. Trail cameras installed at the kill site provided spectacular confirmation within 24 hours. The killer was a shocking discovery: a Florida bobcat. A wild feline weighing just 13 to 40 pounds had successfully hunted, killed, and cached a 50-pound, 13-foot apex predator that had terrorized the Everglades for 2 decades. It was David defeating Goliath, except David was a native Florida wildcat and Goliath was an invasive Asian super predator. The footage showed an adult male bobcat returning to check on his buried prize, moving with the confident swagger of a predator who owned his territory. Watching the footage was like witnessing pure redemption. Here was a native Florida predator, a species systematically pushed to the brink by invasive pythons, standing triumphant over his conquered enemy. The bobcat displayed textbook big cat behavior, cautious but confident, scent marking the area, clearly recognizing this as his territory and his victory. But here's where this story becomes heartbreaking. Bobcats aren't just fighting back, they're fighting for their very survival. These native felines have been casualties of the python invasion just as much as rabbits and raccoons. The warfare operates on multiple devastating levels. Pythons actively hunt bobcat kittens and compete for territory that bobcats have claimed for generations. But the indirect impact may be even more catastrophic. Pythons don't just kill bobcats, they're starving them out, consuming every rabbit, rat, bird, and small mammal that bobcats desperately need to survive. Imagine trying to feed your young in the modern Everglades. Your ancestors hunted these territories for thousands of years, but now 99% of the rabbits are gone. 99% of the raccoons have vanished, and the muskrats have disappeared entirely. You're surviving in an ecological wasteland, competing with super predators that can eat prey 10 times larger than anything you could handle. Scientific research documents this relationship with terrifying precision. When python populations exceed 3 per square mile, bobcat presence drops dramatically. In the most affected areas, bobcat populations have declined by up to 87%. Nearly 9 out of every 10 bobcats that should be living in the Everglades have either died or been forced to abandon their ancestral territories. But Loki's death represents something profound, evidence that nature's writing its own revenge story. Wildlife experts believe Loki was vulnerable during that December cold snap. As cold-blooded reptiles, pythons become sluggish when temperatures drop, their reflexes slow, and their normally lightning-fast strikes become clumsy and predictable. The resistance extends beyond bobcats. Black bears have been documented using their massive strength to crush pythons before the snakes can counterattack. American alligators are developing new ambush techniques specifically for python encounters. Even birds of prey are targeting python hatchlings in unprecedented numbers. Each victory represents more than one eliminated invader. It's knowledge that can be passed to offspring, behavioral adaptation that can spread through populations, and evolutionary pressure that might eventually tip the balance back toward native species. While these stories offer genuine hope, human intervention remains crucial. Professional removal programs capture thousands of pythons annually, but population models suggest they're still reproducing faster than they can be eliminated. A single female can lay 50 to 100 eggs yearly and live for decades. But stories like Loki's prove our native wildlife hasn't surrendered. The bobcat that killed Loki represents the refusal of native ecosystems to go quietly into extinction. From victim to predator, from prey to hunter, Florida's bobcats are writing their own comeback story under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. What started as ecological disaster has become a tale of resilience and adaptation. Loki's death wasn't just the end of one python story, it was the beginning of a new chapter in the battle for the Everglades. The war isn't over, but nature has proven it has a remarkable capacity for surprise and renewal. The story reminds us that even when everything seems lost, nature finds a way to fight back. Sometimes David does defeat Goliath, even when David's a 30-pound bobcat and Goliath is a 50-pound python that was supposed to be invincible. What do you think about this incredible plot twist? Are you rooting for the native species? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories from the wild world around us.